listening to The Edge, everything bass fishing, coming to you worldwide from MegaWare Keel Guard Studios.
What is up, you all? Here we are back for more. That's right, more Bass Edge Radio. This December 1 edition. Man, it is coming to a close. That's right, 2023 is coming to a close. We got one more episode after this December 1 show. It'll be on December 15th. And man, I can't believe things are winding down so fast. We had a great Thanksgiving holiday here at Bass Edge Radio. I hope you all did too, and are ready to start tackling this holiday season. Man, it's going to be a fun one. A lot of cool stuff going on. We've had a lot of changes, of course, in the bass fishing world, and I don't know, total changes, but a lot of movement, some different things going on, which we've seen a lot. Man, just the overall what I've seen lately is just a realization of the young anglers, you young anglers out there doing so well in this industry, and really that forward-facing sonar being the catapult for a lot of young pros into the major tournament trails, and even just, you know, the AAA events just flooding to these fields and really having a good time out there fishing with this new technology. So good to see. Man, we haven't had any bass in action since the last episode when our feature angler was Ott Defo. Man, we had a great interview with Ott. Ott spoke. Ott spoke about number one, he spoke about fall bassin', man, late fall bassin'. It was great to hear him again, episode 412. If you haven't heard it, go back, check it out. Get a lot of good little tidbits on how he likes to catch fish this time of year, late fall, moving into early winter. Of course, shallow water fishing, river fishing. Those were some of the points of discussion there through that interview. And you know, Ott gave his thoughts too, obviously, on the MLF Bass Pro tournament organization that he's fishing in 2024, and just kind of where they've been, where he sees that platform, and you know, kind of what he's excited about moving forward as well. So if you haven't checked that out, be sure and go back and look at the Ott Defo interview, episode 412. And we had some great episodes previous to that. John Garrett, also a new Elite Series angler, really fun to talk to. He's going to be rookie next year on that Bassmaster Elite Series in 2024. Bass Edge, as always, brought to you by, that's right, MegaWare Keel Guard. Man, could not do it without MegaWare here at Bass Edge Radio. Keel Guard, providing boat owners protection from grinding salt, abrasive rocks, concrete boat ramps. Man, don't go without having a keel guard on your vessel. Man, make sure tune up your rig this winter. Talked about it last episode. It's a great time to go to megaware.com. Check out the Flex Step. Really great product. Check out battery guards. Man, I'm going to be running 5 lithium batteries in my boat next year. First time I've gone all lithium. I've played with some lithium on the trolling motor side. Found a brand I'm really excited about, really have a ton of confidence in. And the battery guard is going to help keep those lithiums protected in your boat. Man, what an investment those things are. But gosh, they last a long time. Lastly, you know, the Scuff Buster, always a great addition, and can't go without a skeg guard, especially when you're running shallow, fishing in some shallow waters. A skeg guard is always great. And all these products just put that little extra ding on your boat as well, man. It makes it look really pizzazz, and it really lights it up. So check out those products from megaware.com. Man, there was a few announcements. The Bassmaster EQ anglers were announced. It's going to be a field of EQ anglers in the Bassmaster Series next year of about 153 anglers is where they were sitting when they launched or talked about and discussed those anglers that are going to be fishing for a position in the 2025 Bassmaster Elite Series through those. You got some BBT anglers, man, that jumped into this thing. You've got former Classic champion Cliff Pace going to be fishing the Bassmaster EQs. You got a 2-time think he's two-time, maybe three-time Elite Series champion Mike McClellan, other former leaders that were in the Bass Pro Tour, Russ Lane, Brett Hite, Cody Meyer, Randall Tharp. Man, the field, as many other Elite Series anglers in there. I can't even name them all, but those are the newest additions to that Bassmaster EQ field that are coming from the MLF Bass Pro Tour. Man, that's going to be a fun series to follow next year. They're going to do a lot more coverage, so it's going to be cool to watch. And man, the anglers that make it out of that field, phenomenal. The anglers that make it in any field these days, just absolutely ridiculous. The amount of anglers out there fishing for big dollars in bass fishing, and man, you just got to freaking catch them. I feel like most of those anglers left not because they don't like the MLF organization as much. I think a lot of them are pretty happy over there. They'd fished there for several years. I'm not saying all of them were, but man, I believe the biggest thing is they wanted to stick with that 5 fish limit. They got a taste of that again last year when the Bass Pro Tour fished a 5 fish limit. And when the Bass Pro Tour announced they would go back to an all catch, weigh, and release format and a slightly reduced field for 2025, it looks like. From a qualifying standpoint, I feel like these folks wanted to get back and have something fresh to do, and that's where they're sitting. I mean, just announced a day or so ago, Bassmaster partners with WAN Bass. That's Western Outdoor News publication out on the West Coast. The WAN Bass puts on the U.S. Open. They are the biggest organization and the freshest, I think, organization out west. Billy Egan runs that series out there. They are moving to a 5-event series next year, a full slate of events. They're going to be going to Lake Shasta, Clear Lake. Then they're going to move down to Havasu, then Lake Mead. Those are going to be the 4 WAN Bass kind of regular season events, I guess you might call them. And then they're going to kick off or finalize the year with the coveted U.S. Open there at Lake Mojave. But 25 anglers, like you have other regions in the Bass Nation series, are going to be qualifying for the Bass Nation National Championship next November. So super cool that Bassmaster kind of plugged into the West out there. It's honestly about time that happened again. MLF has done an awesome job of kind of giving those Western anglers an excellent format with the Toyota series out there. So props to MLF on always being in the West, and good on Bassmaster for finally getting back out there and finding a way to kind of touch with those grassroots anglers and all the anglers out west through that WAN Bass series. So man, I'm going to be fishing that series next year. So I'm super excited about it. You'll be hearing a little bit more about that as we move through 2024 into the podcast. The first event is at the end of January. As I mentioned, Lake Shasta on the schedule there. I've never been to Lake Shasta. I am super excited to show you all what Lake Shasta is all about, what's going on out there in the West. And, we're going to bring some highlights from those events right here on the podcast with Bass Edge Radio. Man, today, interesting. We've got on the program, I think it's the one angler that moved or has moved from the Elite Series into the Bass Pro Tour voluntarily. Keith Poche. Man, he has had such a really good record through his Bassmaster days. Had some great tournaments through there. Capped off several top 10s through the Bassmaster Elite Series. Almost one or two throughout his time that he fished the Elite Series. Then he went to the MLF when they developed the Bass Pro Tour, made the jump with those Elite Series anglers into the Bass Pro Tour program. Then fished the Opens, requalified for the Elite Series. So last year, he fished both. He tried to fish both the best he could. Again, scheduling with the two organizations, not copacetic. They never have been. Even from the FLW days to the Elite Series days, they've very few times have they ever been copacetic. I can remember a couple years. You had guys like Randall Tharp. You had, even Gerald Swindle. Some of these guys were fishing both trails when it was available to fish a full series. Keith tried to do it last year, and he did a great job. He won an MLF event up there at Lake Cherokee. He fished the Bassmaster Classic. He qualified for that the year before through the Opens. Man, we are going to have Keith Poche on the program as our feature angler spotlight, dialing in his decision-making process. I want you to go back all in with MLF Bass Pro Tour. It's going to be fun to hear what Keith's got to say. What's going to be even more interesting about what Keith has to say is we're going to talk about some early winter, fall bass. And Keith is what you might call a small boat guy, loves fishing shallow, loves getting up in the dirt. We're going to hear about how Keith likes to catch fish this time of year, staying with his strengths, and how he is adapting his fishing to some of this forward-facing sonar technology, but staying true to his roots, being successful up shallow. Man, I'm excited for this. Make sure you don't miss Bass Edge Radio. Be sure to like and subscribe right there on YouTube. Make sure we are going to continue to listen, or you can listen to us through our audio podcast. You can download those as you always had through Podbean, Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, all those places. We're still going to be there, but obviously we are on YouTube. This is our first year on YouTube. Been here since April. Matter of fact, Keith was our second ever interview here on Bass Edge YouTube. So that is super cool to have him back. But listen up, guys. I don't want you to go away. We're going to come back right after this break. We are going to have Mr. Keith Poche right here as our feature angler.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so choose the protection the pros pick. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our patented technology. The MegaWare Keel Guard is made tough and made to stick. Install it yourself in less than an hour, providing the most dependable, most trusted protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Insist on the original Keel Guard the pros have picked for 25 years. MegaWare Keel Guard.
Nitro, a rush of tournament adrenaline. Nitro, the choice of champion, where performance meets play. Nitro, a big water beast, a pure fishing machine. Nitro, release the champion within.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to more Bass Edge Radio. Man, it is so good to be back in the studio. Really great to have this guy right here, man. Second time already. Keith Poche being part of Bass Edge Radio. Keith, you got some sun shining on your face right there in Alabama. How's things going for you over there in that part of the country?
Man, it's good. How about you, bro?
I've been good. I've been doing real good, man. I appreciate you coming on this morning. Always been a great friend of the program. Can't appreciate that enough, man. I was just telling folks that you were the second interview that we did here on the Bass Edge YouTube side. You've had plenty of interviews here with Bass Edge in the past. You know, you always have a great outlook. You've got your own genuine outlook on the sport, whether it's through your style of fishing, you know, doing the small boat deal with the gator tracks and the backs of the creeks and you know, watching you on the MLF Selects just dominate a lot of those events throughout the past years. It was a lot of fun to watch coming from the Elite Series, being in the Bass Pro Tour. And man, you've got another personal, unique opinion we want to hear about on Bass Edge, Keith, man. I'm glad things are going good for you. How was your holidays?
Man, it's been good. Busy, though. You know, I don't get much time off these days, so I've been working around the house mostly. But, you know, hey, I got to make things interesting. I kind of go against the grain a lot of times. I mean, everybody's like scratching their head. What is Keith doing now? Like, what is he up to? Why is he making those decisions? But, you know, I mean, I kind of look at things a little bit different than most folks. I kind of think outside the box, and maybe I make bad decisions sometimes. I think we all do, but I try to look at it and put the best plan together for myself, my family, and my sponsors. So, you just do what you do, and I've been on the right side of history most of the time. So,
yes,
hopefully this time I'm doing the same.
Well, just so that folks kind of get an idea of where we're coming from, the MLF Bass Pro Tour, extremely popular. It's particularly when they came from the Cups and Select Days. They started their own events. Keith, you decided to go from the Elite Series and kind of continue that merge into what MLF and the Bass Pro Tour was providing. And a lot of fun to watch over these last 4 years. The MLF Bass Pro Tour has been a unique and interesting platform for anglers to fish at the top level in the sport. But you were able to qualify, go back, fish some of the elite events, which several BBT anglers have tried before. Just recently this year, Bobby Lane tried it, just missed it. We had Ishman Rowe, looking to switch over from the BBT to the Elite Series. But you were in a unique position of where you had qualified you for the Elite Series, fished the Elite Series in 2023, fished the MLF Bass Pro Tour in 2023, and now with a lot of anglers seemingly some of the anglers wanting to move back to bass. Keith, you've made the move from bass and now all in with the MLF BBT Tour. Man, what I want people to understand and really just kind of dive into this is, what was the reasoning for that decision when so many other people seem like it's progressing the other way? You're going kind of your own direction in this.
Yeah, it's that's a good question. And let me tell you something, man. I definitely was the only one to really have that opportunity to go either way,
right?
Because I had qualified and I put myself in position for those options and for those chances. And you always want to keep yourself having multiple options, but it was probably the toughest decision I had to make in a long time, and it was not easy. I weighed both options, and ultimately, I'm staying with MLF. That's where I've been for the past 5 years.
Right.
I made a decision, years ago to follow this journey, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate both leagues for the opportunity to fish and create opportunities for my career.
Right.
But ultimately, after looking at all the options and looking, my style of fishing and, different things, I felt like that MLF would be the better choice for me.
Right.
Just the way I like to fish. Even though I would prefer the 5 fish, I still think that the time, the ride around time, the fact that MLF embraces my little boat, I don't have to be back to weigh in. I have to rush back. Like there's just a lot of things that I feel like that it enables me to be more successful doing what I like to do. Now, haven't ever, and that's kind of up for discussion on the 5 fish, every fish on my style. But I think that a lot of times these places I go, they have a lot of fish, but not a lot of big ones.
Right.
So I think that is still going to play a factor. But let's also remember that this ain't a home run, even if it's 5 fish or what I do is not a guarantee. I got to fish the main lake a lot of times. And that's what people don't realize. Like I go try to find these backwater deals, but it's not always happening. It's not always the deal for that event. So I have to revert to other options. So with that being said, me feeling like I felt, the whole scenario of the format and the way it fits my style, I feel like I'm going to be better off. And of course, some other concerns, I've talked with sponsors, talked to family, and, there's just been overwhelming I would say overwhelming. I would say a more lean to fish MLF, and um, and probably one more reason. And I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or talk bad about anybody, but the fact of what happened at Bass this past year,
Okay.
with the disqualification, and I don't want to talk bad about him. I don't want to, but I felt like I was getting picked on,
Like there was an
for
extra
that.
spotlight on you that, okay, let's
Yeah.
watch what he's doing with this small boat because we want to make sure or
Well, it's been going on for years, Kurt.
Right.
I can't tell you how many polygraphs I've taken, how many for no reason too. You know what I'm saying? Like just because some angler feels or thinks I'm doing something, like they run me through the reamer
the gauntlet. Right.
I mean, it ain't just, hey Keith, this is just concern. No, I had to, like, they put me through hell. And it's just been ongoing, and I'm just like, when is it going to stop? I mean, at some point, I finally told them, just leave me the hell alone and let me fish. I mean,
right.
But and I don't know why they listen to these anglers and because none of it's true. You know what I'm saying? Like everything that they accused me of was not even remotely close. So I don't know, but so
you didn't get the warm and fuzzy, more or less. You felt like the more warm and fuzzy was with MLF rather than Bass, and you saw some of that even this past season. So
yeah, so I got to taste a little bit of it. I had the opportunity to go back. We left 5-6 years ago, right?
So let's talk about that. You got 80 or. At that time, I want to say it was probably 65, 68 anglers that left BASS for a reason. I mean, everybody, I'll say everybody, but a lot of people left Bass to go to MLF. Now, MLF made some, had some aspirations to develop a new, innovative media platform that would grow the sport of bass fishing, which I think it has. They've done things differently than the traditional BASS organization has operated. But there was a reason why so many anglers left Bass to go to MLF and start this Bass Pro Tour event series. So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what did you see? You're one of the few anglers. I mean, there's others, Hackney, Christie, Iconelli, that have moved and morphed back into the BASS platform from the MLF. But from your perspective, now you're going back to MLF. What have you seen? Changes, things turn around for the better from the organizational standpoint? What's your vision now that you've spent a year on both sides last year?
Yeah, Kurt, after going back and seeing it, and when I requalified for the leagues, everybody was like, "Oh, you just need to go back to the leagues. You just forget about ML, blah blah blah." I'm like, no, let me just, I'm gonna try to do both. Keep my, don't close the door unless you absolutely have to.
Right.
But with that said, is I was able to get a taste of what was before, and to be honest with you, man, nothing has changed.
It tastes the same.
and I think guys are going back to what they feel comfortable at.
Right.
And I think they're comfortable at Bassmaster. And MLF is making a lot of changes. I feel like they're changing too much. That's kind of turning people off.
Right.
Whatever. I mean, but I think guys are going to their comfort zone more than anything.
Not that any choice is a great choice, then, right?
No, it's really not. And I'm gonna explain that no particular league is better off than any other one.
Right.
Like they're both the same. Like there's nothing different. Like we're both paying entry fees. They're all their structuring is the exact same. Like I don't see the benefit of being a part of either one. It's just flip a coin and decide where you want to be, because they both have live coverage. Both have a lot of fans. I mean, there's no benefit to either one. It's just, where do you feel more comfortable?
Sure.
Where do you feel like you fit in and want to be a part of? Because these leagues, I mean, especially Bassmaster, hasn't changed really in 50 years or whatever. I mean, it's the same old thing. We're probably one of the only sports that pay the entry fee we pay and have to deal with what we have to deal with. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like I don't think bass fishing, especially the tournament side of this whole deal, is built for the angler. Like it's not built to be angler friendly. I don't know how we get there. I don't know what the answer is on how to make it better. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's a crapshoot on whichever side you want to go on. It really doesn't matter. I think at the end of the day, you don't worry about what they do. You just worry about catching them. Worry about how can I be the most successful at this game. Like just get out of the weeds. Get out of worrying about who's what and this and that, because really they're not going to do anything different. They're going to continue their same business model that they've been doing for years, because apparently that's working for them, but it's not working for the anglers. And I kind of feel sad for newcomers that are wanting to get into this deal. And I think there's one young guy that, he can't even hardly get a sponsor.
Right. Yeah. There's been some light shed on some of those things, but I don't think that, if you asked a guy from that was a rookie in 2023 versus a rookie that was in 2005 versus a rookie that was in 2000 or 1995, it's been a lot of the same for newcomers. You got to find your niche, and there's no golden ticket. Once you jump in, that's all of a sudden says you've arrived, unless you have already built a brand or platform prior to that you've been able to rely on to generate income. So you've got to have that piece of the puzzle. And these organizations aren't, like you mentioned, built around assisting an angler. They are just a platform for the angler that needs to thrive through those processes. Man, very, very, very cool, good, enlightening conversation there on your decision.
And I would add one more thing. I would almost that my sponsors get more out of me doing my off the grid and my social media than they do me fishing these leagues. So I mean, it's not a big. If perfect scenario, I quit fishing tournaments and just do off the grid videos. I mean, really. I mean, it's.
You become an influencer like so many other YouTubers that
that's what it's all about. That's what these companies care about. I mean, but I like the competition.
Yep. So. And if you can add them both together, then you have a stronger platform. So, one thing that we didn't discuss yet too is the platform that the BBT is going to provide anglers that continue to requalify for it. We talked in our last episode that they originally announced it's going to be 50 anglers qualifying for the 2025 MLF BBT Tour or Bass Pro Tour. But we hear rumblings that it's probably going to shift to a 65 angler field after some, continued discussions between MLF and anglers, and maybe what's good for both parties. So having a smaller field like 65, when you go back to the Elite Series that has 100, 105 anglers, it really does give you a more focused platform on anglers that are performing well within that system, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a smart move for MLF to shoot towards, to eventually get to. Our industry is so small that it almost needs to get to that point. I would even say it needs to be
more of a peak at the top, right?
Right. I think it needs to be one league, whether it's MLF, Bassmaster, or they merge later in years down the road. But
that'd be a perfect world. Yeah.
I think it needs to be a 50-man, something small and a one league deal, just like you have the NFL or NBA. I mean, you don't have several NBAs or NFLs. You got one league, and I think when everything's focused on one, then everybody benefits. The leagues, the anglers. I mean, it's just a good scenario. So, but to add to that, I think MLF is moving towards that structure, but they were wanting to cut it all down in 1 year, and I was just I was against the rush and the way they were going about getting there.
Yeah, it kind of left some guys out in the cold, some anglers out in the cold that didn't really maybe didn't have a target to shoot for. Whereas if they do it maybe over a couple years or in a slower format, like you're talking about, then at least it's more palatable for the anglers that are involved in the system, rather than just kind of cutting some folks off at the net. You mentioned. Let's talk about just the perception from the tours. You mentioned when you qualified for the elites, you had lots of social media chatter about, hey, yeah, just go back to Bass. You can fish the Elite Series. You don't see that as much on social media about, hey, yeah, you're going to go back to the BBT and go into that direction full time. Look to Bobby Lane, for example. He tried to qualify for the Elite Series last year, just missed the opportunity, had a Red Crest scenario where he could come back to fish the BBT in 2024. And so that's what he's opted to do. Why is it, and what does MLF, from your perspective, have to do to kind of get that fandom, positive energy movement going again? I think we had that, or MLF had that in the selects and cup days. People were ate up with that, man. They loved it. They watched the Elite Series pros, but yet they saw these special events that MLF was putting on constantly. But now that MLF has a regular tour, you're not kind of seeing that same energy of love for them. What do they have to do to kind of recrowd the fan base and get some more positive energy moving?
Yeah, I think that MLF had something really special when it was the Cup Select format. Of course, you and I fished, Kurt, years ago.
Sure.
Hell, we was the original Select group that started the Selects.
Right.
When the MLF gave us that option. And, that was a new, exciting way, and it was different, and it was built for TV. It was built to be watched. And I think that since MLF has started the Bass Pro Tour, has gotten away from that, suspense, not knowing where you're going. And,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They kind of lost their edge. They kind of lost their little niche. And they've kind of went streamlined like every other tournament league. So it would have to get back to that point, in my opinion. I think it would need to get back to that format of not knowing where you're going, and they throw you out on the water, and everybody's kind of, it's hard to, it's reality TV. It's hard to create that in a regular season event. So me personally, if MLF would get back to that old style, 100%, they would, their numbers would go tremendously up, in my opinion. So, and there again, guys are going back and forth, trying to, qualify here, go there. It goes back to what I was saying. It's just another league, and where you fit in. I mean, nobody's really excited either way. Like, it's just,
I remember excitement. The most exciting times I can remember on the Elite Series is every time we went to a new venue, every time we had done something that the organization hadn't done in the past, similar to what you're talking about with MLF and the selects and the cups. But the first time we went to Waddington, it was giant crowds, huge smallmouth, of course, helped, but it was a new venue. The first time we went to Orange, Texas, not big bass, but giant crowds because it was somewhere new. When we went to the Delaware River in Philadelphia, in Wade, right there at like Penn Station area, or right there on the river, huge crowds. And every time we did something new that would excite a fan base in the territory because they hadn't seen professional bass fishing come to their backyard. And I feel like MLF really has that opportunity, specifically moving into this smaller field format going into 2025 with 50 or 65 or whatever it ends up being. But if they can get on some smaller impoundments or go to areas that just the organizations have not been to yet or haven't been to in forever, then, they'll see some more of those crowds. What's your opinion on my thought process there?
Absolutely. I think that is, and that MLF has that accessibility. The only downside is it's not a fan built attendance on site.
Right.
MLF,
but I think fans will come to those events because they've never had an opportunity to be to an event. Even though it's not the traditional fan scenario, you still have the post-game interviews and some of these things that occur when people get off the water, or just folks wanting to come see their favorite angler, right?
I would say the one on the MLF next year would be that
Chowan River, yes, down in North Carolina,
I mean,
yes.
I've never heard of that place before until this year, since when the schedule come out. So
they had a BP top 100 there ages ago in Bassmaster, but that's the exactly Denny Brower won the tournament. Yes,
really,
yes.
Wow.
There was I think it was either it was the top 100 days. You have to somebody have to fact check me on that. It was either top 150 or top 100 days, but it was in the late 90s. Maybe even like 2000. But anyway, they have actually been to that fishery before. It was a one-time shot, but they've been there before.
Yeah.
But I think that's what keeps it fresh, keeps it interesting. So
yeah,
good stuff there. One other, kind of thing I wanted to touch base on before we get into how to catch bass, which is our route. Of course, there's no tournaments going on this time of year, so it's hard to kind of highlight some guys on some recent catches and things that they've done. But we still like to break it down here. Of course, there's still some folks that aren't a deer stand out there fishing, so we want to give them some tidbits on how to catch some. But lastly, with this organizational deal, and just your choice of where to fish, moving forward. What do you feel like is your final thoughts on just, kind of squashing this thing and getting over the mishmash of where people are fishing this, that, and the other?
What do you mean? Like, as far as what?
Yeah, just your final thoughts on excitement for next year, things that you see moving forward that Keith's going to be able to capitalize on with MLF and the Bass Pro Tour.
Yeah, I feel like that, I'm trying to align myself with the best guys. And I feel like there's great anglers on both leagues.
Right.
But, guys like Wheeler, Art Defoe, and Skeet Reese, Edwin Evers, I want to be a part of that group. I want to be.
That's a traditionalist group right there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to be even, and I know they're cutting the numbers, and of course, we've negotiated with the league on not going as drastic and kind of slowly moving into this 50-man field in a couple of years. So I just want to, and I'm on the chopping block, really. My average is not the greatest. So, but I want to fish with the best to feel like I'm going to be a part of the best. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to stay on that side. I'm either good enough to hack it or I'm not. That's just the way it is. And, I can land somewhere, but whether you fish with the Elite Series or MLF, really it's up to you and what you feel is going to be the best for your career, for your sponsor, family. And you just have to run with it. Guys have their favorites, and, you just got to go with it. MLF's mine. So I'm going to continue doing what I do, the little boat scenario. I feel like MLF embraces it. So it's just something that I've decided to do and to run with.
It's interesting you mentioned, the kind of traditionalist. You hear about, when a guy made the Elite Series, 6-7 years ago, it was, man, I'm fishing against Kevin Van Dam. I'm fishing against Skeet Reese. I'm fishing against, Rick Clunn, Edwin Evers. You hear a lot of these names that have been copacetic and just kind of the highlight of what bass fishing was when they grew up, maybe in the 90s or 80s. And a lot of those guys were still fishing at that time. And there's still a lot of them fishing now. And a big majority of them are at the MLF Bass Pro Tour. So it's interesting that kind of played in your factor as well. From a traditionalist, you're well over 40, Key. I don't know, 45, 50. You're starting. Where are you at? 42. So, there's my point right there. You look scruffy today. That's why I say maybe. But anyway, you don't have that baby face cut like I got. But my point being is, when you grew up and you watched, there's still most of the people that you watched and kind of idolized or kind of fanboyed their career maybe a little bit are all fishing the MLF BBT, or at least a majority of them. So it's interesting how that is kind of the more traditionalist. And now the Elite Series, you look at the qualifiers this year, Keith, it's crazy. I think it's one angler over 30 years old that qualified to fish the Elite Series in 2020. Everybody else is 29 and less. And you got Trey McKinney, that's 18 years old, qualified to fish the Elite Series. I mean, you would have never had that. Experience was always a factor in an angler's success, especially visiting new lakes and doing all these new things. But now with media and specifically forward-facing sonar and how the young anglers have really grasped and gravitated toward that technology and gotten so good at it. Let's go there. Do you think there's more forward-facing sonar fishing going on the Elite Series because of the age difference versus the age difference on the Bass Pro Tour? You know, if you take it from an angler average age standpoint.
You know, I would say, yeah. I mean, it's just the fact that that's what we're going to. But a lot of guys are using on both leagues.
Sure.
It's the technology we have. It's evolving and it's changing bass fishing.
Yeah.
You take the Alabama rig, for instance. It come out years ago, and it was like the greatest thing ever. And it changed the way guys fish, the way they target bass, and now the forward facing sonar, which live scope, the Garmin live scope, with the one I use, but it's amazing what you can do and how you can break down a body of water and the things you can see that you normally didn't see before. I mean, I remember just using 2D. Like, I mean, you either seen it underneath the boat or you didn't see it. I mean,
right.
So I think guys are getting really good at that. They're learning how to find these fish and how to the right baits to cast to them, to catch them. I'm not the expert live scoper, but I plan on, taking some time this off season to learn it, just because it's a part of the equation now.
Right.
I mean, it's just not throwing a jig down on some brush or flipping up, Berkeley pit boss on a lay down, going down the bank. I mean, it's you have to, when my back's against the wall and I've got to perform, like I said, not always is the backwater, jumping stuff working. You have to revert and do things and be versatile. So I'm going to take some time to learn this, get it freshen up on a little bit of it, and figure out how can I sharpen my skills on live scope.
Very cool. As
far as moving forward on what, will happen with this, I don't know where do you draw the line on regulating this. I know there's some talk about that. Does this go away? Do they ban it? Do they did? I think at some point you have to regulate it. Every sport has regulations, and you can't use certain things. And I think it has to be regulated at some point because the technology is going to continue to get better, which is a great thing. But you have to keep it a sport. I mean, you have to keep it challenging. That's the whole part of the sport. When you make it too easy, then, it's really not that interesting.
Yeah, that's a great point. We're going to talk about that in the second half of our interview. We're going to also talk about how maybe the format with all you can catch, weigh, and release kind of maybe leans more to that forward-facing sonar technology, and kind of talk about that process and how you are going to incorporate this program and continue to develop your knowledge through that, but still keep true to your roots. So it's going to be fun to listen. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to be right back with more Bass Edge Radio after this message. Our future angler spotlight MLF 100% Keith Poche. We'll be back right after this.
Plenty of sunshine.
Come on, man, let's roll. What the?
To catch the fish, you need to be one with the fish.
With Power Pole shallow water anchors, you'll get the ultimate in precision, power, and control, so you can catch more fish. No face paint or phony fins necessary.
Excessive shock and vibration are two leading causes for premature battery failure. Prolong the life of your batteries with the new MegaWare Battery Guard. The Battery Guard sits under your battery and absorbs excessive vibration and bounce, reducing G-shock by up to 80%. Great for boats or anywhere shock and vibration can damage a battery. The Battery Guard can easily be trimmed to fit virtually any custom shape or battery size. Save money by protecting your batteries. Spend more time on the water and less on maintenance. Find yours at megaware.com.
All right, guys, we're back with Keith Poche. First, let me give a quick shout out, man. This portion of the show brought to us by Bass Pro Shops, reminding you that we all live downstream. Here we go, Keith, man. We're talking bassing in the second half of the interview, how you're going to catch them. Dude, we all know you're a shallow water expert, man. How do you like to go about, finding quality bass in this early winter time frame? Here we are, December 1st, dude. The year's almost done, right? But we're still getting out there bassing. Some people have filled deer tags by now, right? so It's time to get back on the lake. Man, what are you doing this time of year, early December? You're Southern Alabama, right? You're just right around that Montgomery area where you're living right now. What's going on in your neck of the woods? How you catching bass?
Man, it gets tough. It gets tough everywhere this time of year. Fish, it's getting cold. The fish are getting lethargic. The water temperatures are dropping. But there's still a little bit of that fall bite going on. Typically down here, the fish are generally shallow. They stay shallow year round. Just the Alabama River, different places like that where the water's has a little color in it. Some of those backwaters, some of those creeks, but they're going to start transitioning closer to some of that deeper water, getting close to it, not really in it. So maybe some channel swings and some creeks, that's got a little deeper water, maybe some bluffy banks.
Right.
Throwing, a general or a shaky head or a little jig that just something slow, something that's not too fast. That's going to, they're not as aggressive as they were, a month ago, but still going to eat. So, but yeah, it's just a tough time of the year. Some start, gravitating to some brush piles a little bit further out, but that's just not my deal. But I will do it when I have to. But man, just slow down. That's the deal. And have these warm days. Even though it's we're getting close to December,
right?
You're going to have some warm days, and those fish are going to get a little more active. They're going to pull up, find some dirty water that's going to warm up a little bit more. That when that sun starts hitting it, it's going to generate some more heat. So those are the key spots like that. Those little transitions. Maybe some rock, finding some rock banks that's going to warm up. Anything that was going to generate heat, even pontoons. Like I try to look for like some docks, floating pontoons that black plastic.
Right.
Those fish bend around that kind of stuff, and throwing a little jerk bait or a little swim bait around that. I do throw a swim bait every once in a while, a little old paddle tail, but it's a good killer. That's this time of the year. But yeah, man, it's always tough. You're scrapping for a bite a lot of times, wondering. But the off the grid deal, and I'm just going to add this one more thing.
Sure.
Off the grid deal. I get back in places, the little backwater ponds that them fish can't go anywhere. So you get in there. You just they're just on the bank. You just go down the bank wherever you can get a cast in, because they're not going to leave. They're there year round. They live in those places. So
do you feel like when you get to these unpressured areas, when you're able to get off the grid, like we saw you get behind the dam at Cherokee in that zone, and you can get to these special areas, what I call them, areas that are less pressured. Do you find that they're just even more apt to bite, even though you might be dealing with less than prime conditions, during this time of year? You say the bite's tough, but when you get to those areas that are less pressured, do you feel like you can hit a gold mine in that deal and that they'll bite even though the conditions aren't perfect?
Yeah, a lot of times, just because they're fresh, they haven't been messed with, they may be more apt to react to a bait versus main lake stuff that is getting a lot of boat traffic, a lot of noise, a lot of pressure. But still, the conditions do play a factor. Like I said, you've gotta make some adjustments on how you tack them. For instance, at Cherokee, if the way I was catching them on the Berkeley Hollow Belly,
Right.
I may slow down and throw like a jig or or a shaky head or something that will slow down, get down, and be in that zone a little longer. That they don't have to go chase, and because they're just gonna move a little slower. So yeah, I mean, they're still there. They're still going to bite. You just may have to change your bait selection, and it's just a process of elimination a lot of times.
Right. You talked the bait selection. You talked about jig, shaky head, smaller paddle tail stuff. This time of year, do you feel like profile is a big deal? If you do, which way are you leaning? Are you a small bait guy? Do you feel like that's the way to go this time of year? If so, why? Bigger baits, or how do you determine what's the best scenario when maybe you're not able to generate as many bites because of the behavioral pattern of the season?
So yeah, I mean, I think downsizing is always a plus, but you're going to catch a lot more smaller fish. But I think you still have that chance of catching those bigger ones as well. Bigger baits, you probably gonna get less bites, but the reward could be a lot greater for you. It's just a part of a location, I think, more than anything. What
Okay.
part of the country in, what type of, are you at Gunnersville, or are you on the Alabama River? I mean, it's hard to decide. It's a case by case situation on where you
Okay.
are. If I'm fishing the Alabama River, I'm probably going to throw something smaller, probably a little like a little 3-inch Berkeley pit boss. They're again like a Berkeley General, something small, sleek, slender. Just really kind of finessey looking.
Mhm.
I feel like that's going to generate more bites and that potential bigger bite as well. But if I go to a Gunnersville or something, I'm probably going to upsize just a little bit, or stay with a normal size. But I'm not going to downsize any because I feel like it's got the amount of bigger fish up in that area to
Gotcha.
where I'm trying to put myself in a position to catch a big fish if I'm in a turn or something to get those big bites to get where I want to be. But so yeah, it's just really location.
Right.
Really hard to say 100%, but typically I'm gonna lean to downsizing.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Gunnersville. I've heard some chatter that, man, Gunnersville is really starting to kick them back out again, and there's some 30-pound bags this fall being
Wow.
caught and winning tournaments up there at Gunnersville. So that's awesome to see that Gunnersville is returning to some of its glory as it was in the past. But you talked about in the first half of the interview working on forward-facing sonar. I don't think I'm probably going to see Keith Poche sitting out in the middle of the river channel firing off Demiki rigs or jig head minnows at bait balls. It may happen. I'm not sure, but it's going to be fun to see how that might transpire. And I know you've caught fish like that before, obviously, but how will you incorporate your style of fishing and merge forward-facing sonar into that? Is it something where you just run out there and just start scanning, or do you see yourself with a plan or a comfortability level in using that technology in some way that still leans toward your traditionalist approach of shallow water bassin?
So yeah, I'm going to work on my live scope skills this off season. To make sure I'm set up right. That's the thing. Knowing that your units are in the best working condition as far as the settings and what to look for. What does a bass look like versus a carp or a gar? So I mean, just knowing those few little details, I think, is going to help me tremendously. But overall, a lot of times when I'm using live scope, and I use it in shallow water, is to find those subtle little stumps that's right off the bank, maybe a rock or a little drop, or because a lot of times those fish ain't like so tight to the bank. They want a piece of structure right off. So I'm not necessarily looking for the fish. I'm looking for structure. I'm looking for something to cast to. And a lot of times that makes the difference and finding a little pattern and seeing those stumps out there and just casting to them without getting my boat on top of them and knowing exactly where they are instead of just fan casting. So it definitely does help me break it down, make more accurate casts, be more efficient, and, do what I need to do in these backwater situations. But man, I'm going to get out off the bank. I'm going to try it as well. I'm going to get out there in that 20 foot if it calls for that to go out there and throw the dynamite rig or whatever I have to do to catch them.
Man, that's going to be fun. That's cool. Do you feel like as the trending of the technique continues, the forward facing sonar, the all you can catch, weigh and release, how's that going to affect the overall Bass Pro Tour approach to the 2024 season as you go from the best five back to all you can catch, weigh and release? Because just the difference in a couple years is huge. This really 2020 shot up out on the scene, 2019 a little bit. So, man, we're only 3 years into this thing. It seems like the transition has happened tremendously fast, faster than any technology there's been. Even with, side scan, it took longer for people to adapt and understand and utilize that technology efficiently. This seems to be happening a lot quicker.
Yeah, it is. And, I think that this transition going back and forth, guys are going to rely on it a lot more to, find groups of fish, schools of fish. But if you take Cherokee, the one I won this past year, for instance, I mean, there's guys live scoping down the lake.
Right.
And if you go back and look, I'm almost certain that no matter, I would have won that tournament anyway, whether it was every fish or 5 fish, because I was just catching a lot more fish and I wasn't live scoping. I couldn't up there in that shallow water.
You just had to keep yourself off the rocks.
Yeah, I was just trying to stay afloat and without falling in the water. But it's going to matter. I think guys are going to they're looking for a bite, and there again, it depends on the minimum size, because they rate that weight depending on where we go. It may be a 1.5 pound minimum, maybe a 2 pound minimum. Depending on what they put that at, what would determine on the amount of fish that's going to be weighed, the way a guys attack the lake.
Right.
But I think there's still something to say about going shallow and just getting in the dirt and catching fish, man. And if you look at our schedule lines up to where I feel like live scope is not going to play a lot of times. You look at that Chowan River. I think, cypress trees, backwater, the James River. I mean, that's going to be, in the dirt. I mean, just crazy stuff. I mean, there's a lot of places that live scope I don't think really is going to play that much. It's just going fishing. But there is a couple that I'm going to have to rely on it, I feel like, and see what I can do. But,
right,
it's just going to depend on, what that minimum weight's going to be each event.
Right. Let's get back into a little bit more fall fishing. You talked about, hitting some rocks, some warming trends, maybe some areas of dirty water. Maybe it sounds like a little bit less current is going to be a part of that process as well. As we move into the latter part of December, you get into Christmas, the first of the year. In Florida, the first of the year, things start turning into a pre-spawn spawn phase. How will the dead of winter, that late December, early January time frame affect your shallow water techniques? Are you still relying on that when you go out fun fishing, enjoying a day on the lake, this time of year? And what is your approach through that process?
Yeah, I mean, it's the dead of winter, it's cold, but I fish every New Year's Day. And
okay.
I take
That's a tradition.
Yeah, yeah. I take my little girl out last few years, and I got a little spot on the river that we slip in, and it's doesn't get fished a whole lot because you can't get a big boat in there, but it's always full of fish, and I catch them on a spinner bait on stumps. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, so like I said, there's always fish that's going to live shallow, and depending on where you are in the country. And if it ices over or not, but I mean, the further you go north, the more a little deeper they'll get and suspended. And even though they're not in deep water, they're underneath the ice. I hear stories of guys cutting holes in the ice and catching bass. So the fish are right there. I mean, it's not like they go to 25 foot of water. They're still relating to those shallow areas, but maybe to some deep water access. And down in Florida, I was at Okeechobee one year. I can't remember what year it was, but it was like the 1st of December, and I was bed fishing. Right. So it just depends on where you are in the country, weather patterns, what's happening. But yeah, I mean, I typically still fish shallow and find these fish. Maybe not as many, or they're not going to be as aggressive, but you're still going to find them shallow in certain areas for sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Sounds like a lot of fun. I love that spinnerbait bite. They did a little bit of breakdown on some of the most productive techniques in a tournament series this year, and a spinnerbait, which, let's face it, over the last 5 years, we ain't heard a whole lot about blade baits, right? I say blade baits, about spinnerbaits, but man, it was like the 4th bait outside of like drop shotting and bladed jig, and I think that there was one other technique before you got to the spinnerbait. But man, it was top 5 in the year. What is going on with that? You think it's just like a shad spawn deal that had a bunch of tournaments this year in April, May, and June, and that's why it fired off, or do you think some of these older techniques are starting to come back into the fold for particular reasons?
Yeah, I think some baits just are tried and true, man. They just work year in and year out. I mean, just like a general or a Cinco type, soft plastic stick bait. I don't care where you go in the country, that thing has worked for years.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that some baits just continue to work just the way they're built, the way they're designed. You take a spinner bait, you can throw that thing in the thickest stuff. I mean, and pull it through scattered grass, through laydowns. I mean, it's just where you can put that bait is just amazing. And I think that's the difference a lot of times on how. And we look at situations in certain circumstances. It's about a lot of time presentation, and the where you can put that bait for it to work properly and draw that fish. So. And I think a spinner bait is so versatile as far as that. If the fish are, fairly shallow, you can put it in so many places to draw that fish and to get that fish to react to it. Because a bass is an opportunist. I mean, if they see something, it's a reaction. They want to eat it. Their genetics are engineered for them to lash out at something like that. So putting it in those places, I think it makes your chances and your percentage go higher on getting bit. So it's a lot about the choice of bait and where you can put it a lot of times versus really, if you could take let's say a jig or football head, I mean, whatever. If you can put that same bait in that area, I think you would get a bite as well. It's just what you can fish the most efficiently in that situation.
Gotcha. I want to hit one more thing before I let you go. And you talk about the general a lot. That's something that you lean on. A lot of perception with that style of stick bait. Senko, general, yum dinger, whatever it is. You think about Texas rigging it, or a lot of people just wacky rig it, weightless, Nico, whatever. You particularly lean heavily, and I know this because I've seen you on live with it a lot, and I've seen you have a ton of success with it, but you use it on a shaky head a whole lot. And obviously there's other anglers using that style of technique, but why is the general on a shaky head so productive for you? And why is it, one of those lures that you're always probably going to see on the deck with Keith Poche?
Yeah, you think of shake. I say shaky head a lot of times, and they think, "Oh man, he's finesse fishing with spinning rod." No, I'm using a 7.3 Fenwick, 7.3 heavy Fenwick rod with Abigar still 8-to-1, gear ratio 15-pound test, Berkeley Trilene. I mean, 5/16 ounce shaky head. I mean, and then a 5-inch general. Like it's right. A power fishing deal. And I have that bait tied on 100% of the time. I have made a living on that bait. I have yet to see another angler have that particular bait tied on. I mean, maybe they do. I just haven't seen it, but I haven't. I don't think I've seen
We're
it.
giving out, dude. I appreciate you giving out all the secrets right here, but yeah, I've seen it so much on your deck. Like you say, you have it on there 100% of the time. Why is this dang thing so freaking effective? Set up the way that you set it up.
I think it's almost like an oversized Ned rig. I think, and I don't know why guys are having a hard time figuring that out. And which I tell people they still don't do it, but
right.
But I think you're able to fish it in a lot more different places. You can cover a lot of because it's heavy. You can fish it shallow to deep really quick. I mean, I catch fish in 20 foot out of brush piles on it. I skip around docks. I throw it on rocky banks. Dude, I fish this thing everywhere. As long as it's a hard bottom, it's not muck. Shell bar in Florida, shell bed, like black and blue with a black head. Like there's so many ways you can fish this thing, and I'm able to fish it a power setup. Like I don't have to worry about light line and breaking off and all that. I mean, I'll
10-pound test. Right.
I'll flip it in a lay down and pull it out of a treetop, fish out of a treetop. I mean, when I caught that fish off the dock, that 7-pounder in that MLS event.
Yeah, Chickamauga, right? I remember that.
It was on that bait, that particular bait, the same exact setup. And that fish come out about 15 foot of water. So, man, I just think it's so versatile. You can throw it in a 6 inches of water. You can throw it in 20 foot, and you can work it from 6 inches to 20 foot, and you can work it fast. I think it's just a versatile bait that you can fish all different type water depths. And I just set myself up, and the percentage wise of getting bit goes way up the way I fish it.
Very cool. Well, I think it's definitely appreciate you sharing that, number one, but I think it's definitely something Bass Edge listeners need to look at, man. It's such an effective bait, and I can see it even lightening up that jig head, using it with forward facing sonar. There's a lot of applications even that expand into this new technology with that style bait. We talked about it last episode. The Chad Mrazek that won the Toyota Championship. He was using a really small jig with a little Ned rig style bait, but it really made me think of your style of fishing and how you can incorporate Keith's favorite bait, this jig head general, in that same functionality. So it's just so daggum versatile. I think everybody needs to take a look at it. And I appreciate you sharing that, Keith, man. I don't want to keep you too much longer. I thank you so much for kind of breaking down your decision about how you are 100% with MLF and Bass Pro Tour in 2024, man. We wish you the best of luck. We're going to continue watching. You always, when you're on camera, dude, you always make fishing exciting and fire people up to go hit the water. That's the best thing I love about you, the nature.
Well, I try to have fun, man. Yeah. And look, we're very fortunate to do what we do, and I try to make the most of it. I'm really thankful to be in my position. And I'm kind of disappointed in you, Kurt, though, because
come on, what
you said I was the second person to ever come on your show. I'm kind of disappointed I wasn't the first. So,
well, you're the second in the YouTube era of Bass Edge Radio. I think, dude, you've been on the show quite a few times now.
I'm messing with you.
No, man, it's great because you've had great success and you're so candid. Man, there's no secrets with you. That's what I really like. And you talked about the like I say, the decision, what kind of really broke that down, how you felt, there's been some, outside influences that have affected how maybe an organization looks at you or scrutinize your style of fishing, your way of fishing. And man, you're just doing your thing. That's what I love the most, man. Where can people catch Off the Grid? And do you have anything that's going to be dropping here over the next couple months that people should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, man, you go to my YouTube channel, Keith Poche. It's Off the Grid. I have not filmed one recently. Man, I need to get on that. And there's something that's coming really big. I'm working with a sponsor, Pure Fishing, Berkeley, Abu Garcia, Fenwick. For the first year, we're going to have a pretty cool deal coming out. So you guys stay tuned for that. It's going to be pretty exciting.
We can catch it on your social. Best way to catch that?
Yeah, go to Keith Poche, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it all. Yeah, right. We're going to be putting it out. So hopefully I can get a new Off the Grid episode up soon. Maybe you should come film it with me.
Yeah, dude, I would love to do that. That'd be a hell of a lot of fun. I don't know about this. It's where I know it's where I seen you sweating in the videos, bro. I know it's where when you won that Open at the Red River, man, pushing back into the backwater, the way you worked your magic, to get back into some of these areas, and not only just Red River. I've seen you do it so many times throughout, our relationship and through the years. It's been fun to see and watch, and I'm glad all the fans get to watch it too. And now with all the great coverage everybody's got, man, Keith, we are going to let you go. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for breaking everything down. We're wishing you the best of luck in 2024, 25, and beyond on the MLF Bass Pro Tour. Bass Edge Nation, y'all stay tuned. I'm going to come back right after this message, kind of give some of my closing thoughts. Keith Poche, man, appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll be right back after this message.
Nitro, a rush of tournament adrenaline. Nitro, the choice of champion, where performance meets play. Nitro, a big water beast, a pure fishing machine. Nitro, release the champion within.
Nobody wants to run out of power when they're on the water. There is a better way. Introducing the Charge Marine Power Management Station from PowerPole that does the work of 3 devices: a traditional battery charger, a charge on the run, and an emergency start system. PowerPole Charge.
What's up, Bass Edge Nation? We're back for our closing segment, man. That was a fun interview with Keith, man. It was interesting to hear, some of the ways that he's breaking down his decision to stay with the MLF Bass Pro Tour. He has always kind of just done Keith, doesn't listen to a whole lot of outside noise. I had a really good conversation with a friend of mine, and he was had the ability to see Takahiro over the last couple of weeks, and he talked about Takahiro Amore, previous Bassmaster Classic champion, former Elite Series angler, MLF Bass Pro Tour angler, and he doesn't let a lot of outside noise into his environment also, similar to Keith, and just kind of makes his own decisions and understands of what he wants to do. And he had some great insights on why he enjoys fishing the MLF Bass Pro Tour, why he thinks it's a successful organization to be associated with, and I feel like Keith is parallel to some of Takahiro's thought process and just desire to do what they feel is best without listening to all the excess noise that's out there on social media, YouTube, all these platforms that you hear all this chatter about bass fishing. So that was it's always very refreshing. Love to hear, obviously, his tips and techniques. I got to tell you, I really kind of exposed one of his lures that he leans on there at the end of the year interview, that jig head minnow with the Berkeley General, and how successful he's been with that bait, how versatile that bait is. I encourage you, like I mentioned earlier, for everybody to try that type of technique with not just wacky rigging a stick bait, not Nico rigging it all the time, but try it with a jig head minnow. You can skip it, pitch it, punch it, into brush or whatever, all over the place. And it's such a great, it's great around docks, deep docks, like Keith mentioned. It just it's a power, quick way to cover water with a plastic bait because of the lack of action on the worm itself, and how fast you can fish it around obvious cover, and cover with your forward facing sonar, whether it's brush piles, suspended fish. You can adjust those weights, get the float down in front of the fish so effectively. And obviously that's the biggest trend in the game right now. If you've got time this winter to get out on the water, take a peek at some forward-facing sonar, whether it's your unit, maybe your buddy's unit, but get out there, play with it, and it's a lot of fun. But we can see that Keith isn't going to be changing a whole lot of his fishing. Look at how he's attacking fish, in this first part and latter part of December. He's staying shallow, getting in backwater areas, unpressured situations. He mentions even when you maybe don't have optimal conditions, you can still really capitalize in shallow water fishing. And he goes back even traditionally in his New Year's Day, fishing trip with his daughter, throwing spinner baits this time of year and being very, very successful. Of course, he lives pretty far south, kind of in that Montgomery, Alabama area. He talked about the Alabama River, but all those other Coosa River lakes and in that zone are also very effective. But you can take that from the Ozarks and Texas to Florida into the Carolinas and be very, very successful in the style of fishing during this time of year that Keith is successful with. So y'all put that in your arsenal, man. Put Bass Edge Radio. Continue to keep this in your arsenal. Stay with us for every episode, man. I appreciate you being here for the December 1 episode. Reminder, subscribe, comment below, go back and listen to the previous episodes that we've had, man. We do one every 15 days or so, but twice a month. And we're going to start having a new segment fire off here in Bass Edge over the next several weeks. But we're going to get a friend of the program, another perspective into the Bass Edge conversation about tournament bassing techniques, what's going on in the industry. And we're really excited for that. So y'all be sure and stay tuned. But, man, that's all we've got for this episode of Bass Edge Radio. It's been a great time. December 1 edition. Thanks for being here. We're going to keep studying what the best ways to catch bass and bringing it to you here on the program. Adios, everybody. We'll see you next time. It's been great to have you here on another episode with me at Bass Edge Radio. Take care.